I was in the I can't get my boy. I can't get my boy. Nobody saw what happened.
On the evening of June 20th, 2018, a registered nurse named Marshawnette Daniels pulled her car up to the DNA Level C Boxing Club on Lee Road and Harvard Avenue on Cleveland's southeast side. She had done this hundreds of times before, come to pick up her teenage son Dalen from boxing practice. It was routine. It was safe. It was a Wednesday evening in summer. Her youngest daughter, 9-year-old Saniyah, was in the back seat. They had just gotten ice cream together. And on this particular evening, because of the ice cream, because of the mood, because of the ordinary smallness of that moment, Saniyah stayed in the car instead of going inside with her mother. Her older sister was in the car with her. Marshawnette was inside that gym for approximately 2 minutes. When the shooting started, she got down. When it stopped, her oldest daughter ran into the gym. "Mommy, they shot Saniyah." Marshawnette Daniels ran outside. The boxing club's owner, Rasheen Ali, ran out with her. He held Saniyah. He prayed. He told her it was going to be all right. But Saniyah's breathing had already stopped. She was rushed to the hospital. The injuries were too severe. Saniyah Nicholson was pronounced dead that same evening. She was 9 years old. She had nothing to do with anything. She was waiting for her brother. Before we talk about the street argument, the guns, the 7 suspects, the 4 years of legal proceedings, we need to talk about her, because her name has been misspelled and mispronounced across every platform that covered this case. So let's say it correctly and say it with the weight it deserves. Saniyah Nicholson, not Sayiyah. Saniyah. She was 9 years old, a rising 4th grader from Maple Heights, a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. By every account from the people who loved her, she was electric. Her mother, Marshawnette, described her as beautiful, smart, with a personality out of this world. She loved to dance. She was the kind of child who filled a room just by being in it. She was the youngest of Marshawnette's 3 children. Her older brother, Dalen Hughes, was the boxer, the one they were there to pick up that evening. And Saniyah, according to those who knew her, was Dalen's biggest supporter. She used to come to the gym every day and tell him it was time to go. She was proud of him. She cheered for him. She showed up. After her death, Dalen spoke to reporters about how he coped. He said, "It actually pushed me to keep going. She wasn't the type of person that would have wanted me to stop. She wanted me to keep going." He also said, "I think she would be very happy for the way I came up." That is a brother processing the worst thing that will ever happen to him by doing the thing that made his sister proud. That is who Saniyah Nicholson was, the kind of child whose absence changes the shape of everything around her. Her father, Robert Nicholson, told reporters 1 year after her death, "I don't have no words. All I know is they took my baby and she was all I had. I've been in a dream for the last year. A dream." That is how a father described the 12 months after losing his daughter to a stray bullet on a Wednesday evening in June. And Marshawnette Daniels, the registered nurse, the woman who has spent her career trying to save lives, said she cannot close her eyes without seeing her baby girl. She cannot bear the pain of having been a nurse for so many years and yet being completely powerless in that parking lot on Lee Road. That is who this story is about. Not the argument, not the guns, not the 7 young men whose decisions that evening crossed paths with a 9-year-old girl who had just eaten ice cream and was waiting for her brother. Now let me walk you through what happened on June 20th, 2018. Because this case involves 2 separate groups and a chain of decisions across an entire afternoon. And understanding how it unfolded is the only way to understand what it ultimately cost. In the early afternoon, a young man named Aaron George, 18 years old, was picked up by his friend Matizia Andrews, known to everyone as CJ. CJ brought along the driver, Devontae Nettles, and Devontae's brother, Bruin Harrison, 17. 2 of these young men Aaron barely knew. They spent the early afternoon together. Gas stations, a basketball court, riding around. At some point, they ran out of gas and out of money, having spent what they had on weed and other things. The car stalled at Lee and Harvard. The group split up. CJ and Devontae left to find money, leaving Aaron alone with Bruin, someone Aaron considered a stranger. He was frustrated. He was uncomfortable. And then Sanjay and Devontae came back with no money, but with something else. They were angry. Something had happened while they were gone. They had gotten into a confrontation with another group in the area, and instead of walking away from it, they wanted to go back. Aaron, by his own account during police interrogation, said he told them to leave it. He said he tried to calm CJ down. He said he put his last $2 of cash into a gas can in the trunk. $2, trying to get the car moving and get everyone away from the area. It did not work. CJ directed Devante to drive back toward the area where they had seen the other group. Investigators later concluded this was not accidental. This was a decision. The group had already flashed weapons during the confrontation. They had already escalated, and now they were driving back toward it. At approximately 7:15 in the evening, the car rolled onto Lee Road, heading in the same direction as the other group. What happened next took seconds, and those seconds cost a 9-year-old girl her life. CJ Saniyah Andrews opened fire from inside the moving car at the group on the sidewalk. The other group, Dyshawn Bonner, Damaris Perry, and Timothy Green, returned fire. More than 24 shots were exchanged in total between both groups, in a residential area on a summer evening, in daylight. One stray bullet traveled past the confrontation, past the people who were shooting and being shot at, down the street, and entered a parked car. The car where Saniyah Nicholson was sitting in the back seat. It struck her in the head. Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley later said publicly, "We have lost too many children to this senseless violence, and it has to stop." That statement, true as it is, does not begin to account for what Marshawnette Daniels walked out of that gym to find. It does not account for what Rashin Ali felt when he held that child and prayed and the breathing stopped. It does not account for what Dalen Howes has carried every day since. The knowledge that his sister came to that gym for him and never left it. After the shooting, the group in the car did not go to the police. They did not go to a hospital. Security camera footage captured them 15 minutes later driving to Holton Avenue to dispose of the car. 50 minutes after that, they were on camera again, on the same street, in a different car, disposing of more evidence. 7 people in total would eventually be charged in connection with Saniyah's death. 7. Let me be precise about how the legal system handled this case, because it is complicated, because 7 people were charged, because the charges evolved significantly over the years, and because the family watched all of it from the front row of a courtroom for 4 years. Saniyah Andrews, CJ, the shooter, the man prosecutors said fired the first shots. He was initially charged with murder. He reached a plea deal. In September 2020, he was sentenced to 22 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter and attempted felonious assault. Dyshawn Bonner, Damaris Perry, and Timothy Green, the 3 men from the other group who returned fire, they pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter. In June 2022, 4 years after Saniyah was killed, they were each sentenced to 10 years in prison with a 3-year firearm specification. At the time of the shooting, Green was 20, Bonner was 17, and Perry was just 16 years old. Aaron George and Bruin Harrison, the 2 passengers in CJ's car who did not fire, both pleaded guilty in September 2019 to tampering with evidence, helping dispose of the car after the shooting. Their original charges, which included aggravated murder, were dropped. As of the last available court records, their sentencing had been delayed multiple times and remained pending. Devante Nettles, the driver, he faced the most serious charges of the remaining defendants: aggravated murder, attempted murder, felonious assault, discharge of a firearm on or near prohibited premises, improperly handling firearms in a motor vehicle, and having weapons under disability. His case was continued multiple times. He was eventually convicted of involuntary manslaughter and aggravated robbery and sentenced to 9 years in prison. 7 people, 4 years of proceedings. 1 child. This is justice rewritten, and we stay on every case until the record is complete and the truth is fully told. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now. It costs you nothing, and it tells the algorithm that Saniyah's life matters. When Dyshawn Bonner, Damaris Perry, and Timothy Green were sentenced in June 2022, Marshawnette Daniels stood before the judge and said, "Anytime you fire a gun, you're firing a gun to kill. Period." She also said, "I know we all make mistakes. I know that. But some mistakes will cost you the rest of your life." Saniyah's older sister, the one who was in the car that night, the one who ran into the gym to get her mother, delivered a victim impact statement of her own. She said, "I spent years blaming myself for not dying in the car." Read that again. A child spent years blaming herself for surviving because her baby sister did not. They didn't just kill Saniyah. They killed the version of that older sister who existed before June 20th, 2018. They killed the version of Dalen who could walk into that gym without it feeling like a nightmare. They killed the version of Marshawnette Daniels who could close her eyes without seeing her daughter's face. That is what a stray bullet does. It does not end at the person it hits. It travels forward through every person who loved them for the rest of their lives. At sentencing, the three defendants spoke. Damaris Perry said, "I can't give them back to Saniyah. If I could, I would." Dyshawn Bonner said, "I made a split-second decision that I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. I'm sorry, truly sorry. If I could, I would bring her back, too." Timothy Green said, "I hope one day in life you can forgive me for my actions." The defense attorneys for these three asked the judge to consider their ages, their lack of prior criminal records, their remorse. One attorney said, "This was the reaction of children, and that is the most painful truth in this entire case, because it is accurate. At the moment the trigger was pulled, on both sides, most of the people holding those guns were teenagers. Children making decisions with weapons in their hands in the middle of a street argument that had been building since noon. And the only person who paid with her life was 9 years old and had nothing to do with any of it." Marshawnette Daniels did not go home after burying her daughter and wait for the system to work. She went to work herself. Within weeks of Saniyah's death, she stood in front of cameras and said, "Babies killed my baby. 16 and 17-year-olds outside, where are the adults? When do parents become parents?" She joined with the Black Women Commission of Cuyahoga County to push for state legislation that would place legal responsibility on the parents of juvenile criminals. Not just the teenagers who pulled the triggers, but the adults who raised them without the guidance that might have prevented them from ever picking up a gun in the first place. She said, "When you don't raise your children and you don't train them, if you train them in the way they should go, there is a possibility my daughter would still be alive." That is not the statement of a broken woman. That is the statement of a mother who took the worst thing that ever happened to her and turned it into a demand for something better. She did not just grieve publicly. She organized. She testified. She kept Saniyah's name in front of people who had the power to change something. And 1 year after the shooting, when reporters came back to cover the anniversary, Marshawnette returned to the DNA Level C boxing club. She stood inside the gym where she had gone to pick up her son on the night everything ended. She said, "It's hard to be in here because this was our second home, and now this second home holds a nightmare." But she went back anyway. I want to address something directly, because the title of the video that brought many of you to this story, "Mother Leaves 9-Year-Old Inside Car and Comes Back to Murder Scene," frames this tragedy in a way that places the weight on Marshawnette Daniels, as if she did something wrong. As if leaving her daughter in a parked car for 2 minutes while she retrieved her son from boxing practice was a failure of motherhood rather than the most ordinary thing a parent does on an ordinary evening. Marshawnette Daniels is a registered nurse. She had taken her children to that gym countless times. She had sent Saniyah inside to get her brother before. On that particular evening, because they had just gotten ice cream, Saniyah stayed in the car. That is not negligence. That is a Tuesday. That is a Wednesday. That is every parent who has ever said, "Wait here, I'll be 2 minutes." The title of that video, whether intentional or not, shifted the story. And when we shift the story, when we frame victims and grieving mothers as participants in their own tragedy, we do something harmful to the truth. The truth is this. 2 groups of young men decided on a summer evening to settle an argument with guns in a residential neighborhood in broad daylight. One of them fired first, the others fired back. And a 9-year-old girl who was eating ice cream with her mother an hour earlier was killed by a bullet that had nothing to do with her. That is the story. And Marshawnette Daniels deserves to have it told correctly. There are things this story is asking us to sit with. The first, stray bullets do not know who they are meant for. Every time a gun is fired in a street confrontation in a residential area, there is a radius of people who had nothing to do with it. Neighbors, drivers, children in back seats. People eating ice cream, people who are at the wrong intersection at the wrong second, and the legal system's way of accounting for that. Involuntary manslaughter, tampering with evidence, sentences of 9 and 10 years can never fully capture what it costs the people inside that radius. The second, a split-second decision made by a teenager can travel through decades. Dyshawn Bonner said in court that he made a split-second decision he will live with for the rest of his life. He was right. Simatiza Andrews will be in his 50s when he is released from prison if he serves his full sentence. Devontae Nettles will be in his 30s. Timothy Green will be in his 30s. And Marshawnette Daniels will carry June 20th, 2018 in her body for the rest of her life. not as a memory she can set aside, but as the before and after line of everything. The third, Marshawnette Daniels asked a question that nobody with the power to answer it has fully answered yet. When do parents become parents? When do the adults in a child's life become accountable for what that child picks up, literally and figuratively? She is not asking a rhetorical question. She is asking the state of Ohio to make it a legal one. And that conversation about parental responsibility for juvenile violence is still happening in cities across this country. Saniyah Nicholson was 9 years old, a rising fourth grader from Maple Heights, Ohio. She loved to dance. She had a personality out of this world. She went to the boxing gym every day to tell her brother it was time to go home. On June 20th, 2018, she went one last time. She was in the backseat of her mother's car with her older sister on a summer evening after ice cream, waiting for her brother to come out. That is where the stray bullet found her. 7 people were charged. 4 years of court proceedings. Sentences ranging from 9 to 22 years. And as of the last available records, 2 defendants still awaited final sentencing. The case is not fully closed. Marshawnette Daniels still cannot close her eyes without seeing her daughter's face. Dalen Hughes still boxes, still fights, because his sister would have wanted him to keep going. And Saniyah's older sister is still living with the question of why she survived and her baby sister did not. They didn't just kill Saniyah. That is what the sister said, and she was right. The bullet that struck that car on Lee Road and Harvard Avenue on June 20th, 2018 is still traveling. You can hear it in every court date, every impact statement, every year that passes without a complete resolution. It has not stopped. Rest in peace, Saniyah. This is Justice Rewritten. We stay until the case is closed and the full truth is told. If this video moved you, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you or someone you know is struggling, call or text 988. Free, confidential, 24 hours a day.